Okay, let's see if we might do this again. So I got kicked out of there. So there's a part 2 here. And part 2, we're going to go ahead and get started reading right away. So we are here in the Bookless classroom. We're reading the Mayflower Compact, and we're going to just get started reading. So if you just wanted to hear the book, you can hear it for part 2 right here. So there's a part 1 where I talk and give you a little intro. This is part 2, and we're going to get started reading the book. I was looking at copyright stuff when we left. Okay, so let's get started before we lose our signal again. 17-year-old William Bradford walked through the soft green meadows of Yorkshire, England, one fine spring day in 1607. He was on his way to his 2 uncles' house, where he had lived since his parents died. His father had left him some good land, which he would own when he became 21. In the meantime, his uncles were taking care of it for him. "Where have you been?" his Uncle Robert asked as he opened the door. "We didn't see you at church today, William." "I went to the separatist church service, Uncle Robert," he answered. We talked about that in the part 1 today of day 24. "That is not a church service," his Uncle Thomas said sternly. "You know very well that King James has forbidden the separatists to hold services in churches. They must meet in a barn like outlaws. The king only allows one church in this country, the Church of England." Okay. "The king believed that he ruled the people by divine right and that no one could question his actions." Divine right means that by God, right? See the capital D there? There's a capital D there. That they're talking about God. Divine right is by God. So appointed by God. "He made the laws and people had to obey them. He appointed the bishops of the Church of England, and they in turn appointed the pastors in each church. The people had to worship in the manner of that church and observe its rules." So isn't that interesting? Maybe that's why we have separation of church and state here. I'm just jumping ahead. Sorry for the spoiler alert. Or I'm giving you a spoiler alert now. Sorry for the spoiler. "Most of the people obeyed the king. They worshiped as he said they must. But some proud, hard-working farmers believed that every man should be free to worship God as he wished. They did not agree with the practices of the king's church. They wanted to worship in a simpler way. They also wanted the right to choose their own pastors to lead them. They decided to separate from the Church of England, and after that they were known as separatists." Now, a little bit about the Church of England. One of the reasons why the King of England wanted to enforce these laws of the church and assign pastors is because they broke away from the Catholic Church. So this is the Protestant Reformation is the Church of England. From what I understand, somewhere in there's a Protestant Reformation. Maybe it's a little bit later than this. I'm not sure. But most of this is an outcome of Catholicism, of the Catholic religion, which, remember, Spain was sending people over to the Americas for what? For riches. Columbus wanted to convert to Christianity. We're talking 1607 here. So Columbus 1492. So a couple 100 years, 100 years, just a little over 100 years later, we are still run by the church. Basically, we are not run by a government across the land, right? In England here, and all of the colonies that England owned across the world. They weren't being run by a government like here in the United States. They were being run by the church, whatever church it was. Church of England, Catholic Church of Rome, right? The Vatican, right? So, and now we've got separatists here, which we know the Pilgrims and the Puritans and the Quakers are much different because the settlers, the colonists in the 13 colonies, where we have history from, that they came from the Church of England. So the Pilgrims and the Separatists, they were a different church. They were a different religion. The history that we know, they came from the Church of England. Okay. King James, and isn't that interesting? It's King James version of the Bible. Isn't that interesting? Right? So the version of the Bible that I know a lot of people recommend, and even the newer edition, is the King James Version from the Church of England. So this cannot be, the Protestant Reformation, I think, was in the 1700s. So this Church of England had to be the Catholic Church. We'd have to look at that. Somebody could do a deep dive into that. Is that the Catholic Church? The Church of England in 1607, is that the Catholic Church? Maybe the Reformation was in the 1400s. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe the Protestant Reformation was in the 1400s. That's what I have to find out. When was that? King James did not like the idea of men, but King James, that version of the Bible, makes me think, I don't know. It makes me think, I don't know what it makes me think yet. I have no conclusions yet. King James, 1603 to 1625. King James did not like the idea of men deciding things for themselves and choosing their own leaders. If they could do this in religion, they would soon demand the same rights in government. He decided to harass the separatists and make their lives so difficult that they would move away from England. He raised their taxes and had them arrested for the slightest offense against his laws. Citizens who were members of the king's church scorned and insulted the separatists. Young William Bradford believed the separatists were right, but his two uncles were horrified that he would join such an unpopular group. They were afraid he would be arrested and have his land seized by the king's tax collectors. So if you broke the law, they could take away your land, right? Yes. Okay. Give up this idea of worshiping in another church. Then you can live in peace in your family home, and be a prosperous farmer, they told him. If you don't, you will be driven out of the country without a penny to your name. I cannot accept the king's religion, William declared. I must be free to choose my own way to worship God. But the king demands it, his uncles insisted. Do you set yourself above your master? Remember, their master, the king, was divinely chosen by God. He was appointed by God, according to, that guy. He was appointed by God. Kind of works in his favor. No man is my master, William replied. I will accept the king as the ruler of my country. I will pay my taxes and do my duty as a citizen, but I will not kneel before him as my master, and I will choose my own religion. Wow, yeah. So even in Jesus's time, same kind of thing, right? I will do my duty. Isn't that what Jesus said? Pay Caesar what is Caesar's, right? Pay your taxes. Do what you're supposed to do according to the law. That's even what they're saying here. That's the foundation of the United States. You do it according to the law, but not William. Oh, right? You have no choice, as Uncle Robert said. The government and the church are one. That is the way it has always been. Government and church as one. Do you see a constitutional? What is it, part of the Constitution? Separation of church and state, or is that an amendment? I'm not sure. I could pull out the Constitution, but so could you. It's right there in my purse. Right there. It's right there in my purse. But you could pull it out and find out. Is that part of the Constitution, right, that was written by the Federalists, George Washington, John Adams, or is it part of the amendments written by Thomas Jefferson? So separation of church and state. I think it's part of the original Constitution. Not the Bill of Rights. Right? Didn't we read the Bill of Rights? Look over there. We totally read the Bill of Rights. Okay. So look that up in one of those other days before today. Let's get a move on, shall we? Because here, William is having a fight with his uncles. Uncle Robert saying that he has no choice. It's always been that way. Church and state, just like church and government, like this, they're one. Why wouldn't we listen to the church